So, all right, everybody, this will be warning to all politicians and running for president 2024, part 105B, I believe. Just wanted to go over a couple things real quick with regard to like the New World Order and the order of God. And you can find that in your Bibles. You can find that in other religious texts about the realization of humanity, that there is only one God, and even though there are different religions that were started at different times, they were all given by that one God. The major ones, you'll find the Baha'i faith explanation of that, and the writings of Baha'u'llah, which means the glory of God. You'll also find that in your Bible, and you also find where Jesus said he'd be called by a different name, and would come when no one expected it, and like a thief in the night, and that knowledge would be increased. And there's also some things he said about the rejection by the world, as is par with history with the prophets and messengers of God being rejected and stuff. So with respect to the unity of mankind and everything, we're supposed to be united in that we understand we're one human race, we're on one earth, and there's one God, and we shouldn't do the things to each other that we do. But that, maybe sometime way in the future there'll be no borders, no this and that. But when from the writings I have read so far from Baha'u'llah and from Abdul Baha, who was his son, and then from Shoghi Effendi, who took over the leadership after that, or was appointed, I shouldn't say took over, he was appointed to instruct the believers in the religion. And so if you look at that, the Baha'i faith, you'll find the whole story and stuff. I can reference, the Willamette Institute. They have plenty of good writings, and if you search it, you'll find plenty of stuff. And there's also one called Bridging Beliefs. There's one called the Crimson Cause. There's plenty of things that will fill you in on the religion. But one of the things I wanted to say here was, and I'm no representative appointed by anybody, or, I haven't even, I guess, like officially, because I see where you have to, they had a thing where you filled out a card like registering, and I tried to do that when COVID was all starting. And so I got in touch with one Baha'i member through online, and then got the information where there was a local branch, and stuff, but there was no contact there. There was no answer at the phone. So I wanted to clear that up. I believe, and I'm studying, and I know the way I speak and everything is not representative of them. And I do believe, and I am switching my diet. It's a little harder from time to time out here on the road. I am eventually planning to quit smoking, and like I have in the past at times. And so anyhow, I wanted to clear that up. And when Baha'u'llah announced who he was, and he sent letters and messengers to the kings of Europe and to the Pope and everything like this, mostly the things that he and the Bab, which is the Mahdi figure from Islam, who announced the return, and Muslims know who the Prophet said would announce the return of Messiah. They, if it was like a bad, corrupt leadership, governance of the nation. They did admonish them, but mostly their admonishment and the figures who and practices that they did away with were religious figures, and who they addressed it were these scholars who had taken the religion astray. And also to the people, they admonished the people that, within the Middle East there, I guess smoking hashish had become a big thing. So they admonished them on that they were all busy with doing that, and that's why they had no clue. They were too busy with this life and doing that kind of stuff. They had no clue from their corrupt scholars that this was the time the Mahdi was going to make his appearance, his self-known. So in what I have studied so far, I saw nothing that said, like the Queen of England had to dethrone herself, and the leader of this country and this country had to dethrone themselves, and they had to give up their borders and all this type of stuff. I have not seen anything like that at all. As a matter of fact, Abdu'l-Baha gave his opinions as to what forms of government seemed to be working best, and his opinions on capital investment and commerce and all types of things we need to know about in the modern world, and particularly from a religious aspect. So there's a lot of very good information there. You can find answers to a lot of the questions you have in your head and have wondered about whether it's dealing with religion or just humanity itself. You can find some answers. So I would be a very poor example of a believer. I still have, like, for example, politics and stuff is anything that's divisive, you're supposed to stay away from. But looking at all the violence and the lying and stuff and everything going on, I think we have to try and make some sort of, you don't have to make a political allegiance, but if you're observing and commentating, which is what the news media, which is what Abdu'l-Baha said about, like, news media, you have an obligation to be free and independent and tell it like it is to the best of your ability, and not to be taking sides and pushing propaganda. So, which I think is very wise. Also, other than my language and smoking and maybe an affinity for some music I shouldn't listen to. I listen to all types of music. I'll listen to classical guitar, Spanish guitar, I'll listen to heavy metal, classic rock, some country, a lot of stuff. But I know within those genres there's some stuff, probably would not be considered too wholesome. But I don't listen to music for like messages or I was never drawn to bands because they had more lewd behavior or something like that. It was always their skill. So which is why Jimmy Page is, if you haven't been able to tell yet, one of my favorite guitarists, along with Eric Clapton, David Gilmour, B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Keith Richards, all the greats. So anyhow, I wanted to clear that up. So it's possible, if there's you have the order that's trying to be set by God, uniting humanity, and then there's possible you have like a Hitler type order that's trying to be set up too. So this, there is no master race. Right now you can find black supremacists, you can find white supremacists. Hitler, was about the German people were supremacists. If you look at the Japanese before World War II, they had extremists in their Shinto religion who said they were the master race and were to subdue all races. You look at the Jewish religion, a lot of extremist Jews who believe all other races were made just to serve. They're no better than animals. They were made to serve the Jewish people. So you can find that all over the world. And we're one humanity. There is no master race. Are there races who have developed through the ages more than others, and the rise and fall of different civilizations? Yes, there are, and that happens within every race also. So people need to understand that, because I see a lot more of to where people more or less think only white people can be racist. And there's plenty of, you go on the internet and YouTube and stuff and all these things, you can see plenty of black racists out there and supremacy groups, and you listen to the rhetoric from people like Farrakhan and stuff. So it's out there. So just the same as the Ku Klux Klan crap is out there. And so we're looking at or even politically, ideologically, we have a struggle going on between people who think socialism and etc. or communism is great or whatever. Hey, if they keep it within their borders and that's choices they made for their country, more power to them. But don't come here and try and tell us we have to change over to what you think is right. And that's one of the things, Abdul Baha, who, when I found out, a holy man came to this nation and traveled from New York to San Francisco in the 1800s. I was floored. I was like, I couldn't believe it. And that doesn't mean to make it mean he went a lot of other places in the world too. That doesn't mean America, is some kind of, at least I haven't read anything yet, is supposed to be the shining star of the world and lead everybody towards the future, because he was here. But it amazed me that he was here, and that he did comment on our society and different things, and meet with people. And so that's just was amazing. It's still amazing to me. And I think if you look at the story, you're going to find it awfully amazing too. So going into the future with, people are, worried about globalism, the New World Order, etc., like this and everything. Yes, it could be done very wrongly and subjugate a lot of people and destroy a lot of people's lives, and, depending on how people want to take power and view everything. Or it could be done the right way, where all nations get to stay their own nations. We just all work together better and treat each other on a more equal basis and peacefully. That's why Islam, is called the path to peace, or the religion of peace. And in the Quran, because Islam means peace. It doesn't mean the religion, it means peace. And that's why in the Quran, it says to struggle with the unbelievers. And that doesn't mean that you're not a believer in the religion. It means you're not a believer in the humanity of us all and our connection to each other, and that the goal of God is to do away with the senseless wars and all that kind of stuff, and make this world better. So in the Quran it says, struggle against the unbelievers until peace reigns supreme. And that's what Jesus talked about. That's what's in your Bible. The kingdom of peace, the Prince of Peace. You understand that? Where we solve our problems, where we work together in equitable ways. And they have to be equitable ways, because you can't just say, we want to wipe out poverty, and to do that we're going to wipe out the middle class and bring everybody down. You can't rob me to give to somebody else, especially if they're not applying themselves. That's not charity. And you have to go to the Gospels and stuff, where it was like, you feed a man a fish, you feed him for the day. You teach them to fish, and you feed them for life. So there's ways to end poverty without robbing people and putting a bunch of people on social subsistence programs. So that's what I mean. Things have to be done in an equitable and fair way. You can't have just a bunch of people get together like is now on the left, screaming and hollering. They want everything done their way, and if you don't agree with them, you're a racist and a bigot and everything else under the sun. That just is not right. So going along with the bit here about racism and that type of stuff, let's look at George Floyd. There's a lot that still remains to be told about that story. But before I go into that, let me ask you something. Because everyone's calling these cops racist who are out doing their jobs and stuff and everything. If I was in Africa and I was dealing drugs or doing something else, and the police tried to arrest me, and I resisted arrest, and they ended up shooting me, would that be racist? Now you have to answer that question honestly, no matter what color you are. Would that be racist? Or if I was held up in a house dealing drugs out of my house, and they came to raid the house, and I opened fire on them, and they killed me in that situation, would that be racist? If for any reason I was in Africa and the police tried to arrest me, and I resisted arrest and assaulted a police officer, and they ended up hurting me or killing me, would that be racist? Answer those questions honestly, and then take a look at our police departments and try and tell me that them just doing their jobs.
Attention, a new important message has arrived.
Excuse me for a minute.
Attention, a new important message has arrived. 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 Attention, a new important
Jiminy
message
Christmas.
has arrived. A new message has arrived.
Didn't think she was ever going to stop. Anyhow, trying to say that police who do their jobs in this country are dealing with people who are belligerent, no matter what color they are, who are violent, who are on drugs oftentimes, and something bad goes wrong, that it's the cops' fault automatically, and it's automatically racism, is just ludicrous. You have no argument. Absolutely zero. Now, with regards to George Floyd, let's look at that whole situation. All right, they're called because he's passing a counterfeit bill. Yes, true, he could have got that bill anywhere and not known it was counterfeit. That's very true. However, his autopsy showed he was hopped up on fentanyl and methamphetamine, which is a dangerous combination to begin with in any quantity. But I haven't heard anything as to whether or not
6752131 has been deleted.
I haven't heard anything.
6734417 has been activated.
If he had enough of that stuff in his system to be deadly, which I'm sure he did. So there's a couple scenarios here. All right, he had his ex-girlfriend and her boyfriend or a friend of hers or something with him. They say, and I wonder if they were drug tested, and I wonder what their stories are, because in a little bit of the video you can hear her saying, hey, she was going to get her computer or something. But if they try and say they weren't on drugs or they weren't doing drugs with George earlier or anything like that, you got to think, what kind of guy does a bunch of fentanyl and methamphetamine to run errands with his ex-girlfriend and her friend or boyfriend or whatever it is? Does that make any type of sense to you? Usually when people do drugs, they do them together. So either he was selling, or she was selling, or her boyfriend was selling, or he just had some and they all did drugs together. Maybe they still had some left over in the car when the cops got there. And I'm thinking, quite possibly, unless they tell us, they found the drugs in the car, he might have swallowed a bunch of stuff to avoid, because it's his vehicle. Even if the drugs were hers, he's going to get nabbed for dealing. if it's over a certain quantity. So rather than that and going to prison for a long time, maybe he swallowed them. You understand? Maybe he swallowed them to avoid going to prison for distribution. You know, and thinking, you know, hey, I can tell them I need medical assistance, get to the hospital, get my stomach pumped or whatever, and then all they got me on is under the influence or something. Do you understand that? That's how that works. So let's look at the scenarios. So maybe they all do some drugs and they're actually running out doing errands, and he just happens to have a counterfeit bill that he doesn't know he has, and that's how the whole thing starts. And then the cops come and he wants to get rid of the drugs so he doesn't go to prison, so he eats them. All right. Scenario 2 is he's dealing, and all she has is his counterfeit bill, so she tells him that. So he says no problem, he'll go in and exchange the counterfeit bill and get real money. She can pay him for the drugs out of the real money. Two is he's buying from her, and he's going to go cash that counterfeit bill to get real money to pay her. In any event, any of those scenarios, if he swallowed a bunch of fentanyl and a bunch of meth and it was enough to kill him, that needs to be put out there. The truth has to be put out there. If he had enough fentanyl and meth in his system that it was going to kill him anyway, if he did not get like immediate medical attention, then that truth has to be put out there. If there was some kind of drug deal going down between them all, and the other people there, his ex-girlfriend or that guy, admit to it and stuff, that needs to be put out there. I have not heard one single thing, any kind of follow-ups. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to have some kind of follow-up in the trial of this cop and everything at the same time as the election, so they can stir the hatred some more. But what is going on, the whole truth of these situations where these altercations are taking place between African Americans and the police has to be told. Now, you can go on Officer Tatum or the conservative twins and several other people, donut operator, who wait and they get all the body camera footage and all the cell phone footage they can find on Twitter and other things, and they try and show as much as what happened as possible and get the whole story. Like the guy in Kenosha, was he on stuff? Because he shook those cops off, resisted arrest, shook those cops off, had a knife in his hand, and I don't know if the officer, usually sometimes in a situation like that, even though the officer doesn't mean to, 2 or 3 rounds will go off automatically, just because of the recoil and the situation and the pulling of the trigger. 2 or 3 rounds might go off, but 7, after he got hit the first couple times, was he still struggling? Was he hopped up on something? Because here's the deal: fentanyl is an opioid. It's a painkiller. And methamphetamine, for a person who's reasonably in good shape and a good size, it gives you a hell of a lot of energy. People always just think, hey, it's energy, it's speeding and stuff. It also gives you a certain amount of extra strength until you become a habitual user and you're not eating it all, and then you become this tweaker weakling that you see a lot of them out in the streets. So if he was on fentanyl, George Floyd, or any of these other guys, and methamphetamine, now you got a guy the cops trying to subdue and everything who doesn't feel pain. And I'm not sure, but I think Rodney King was on some kind of painkillers or 2 or something. And that's why he did not go down after they struck him way back then. But in any case, George Floyd, the autopsy shows, had fentanyl, which is a painkiller. He's also got methamphetamine, which means he's jacked up. And methamphetamine also adds a bunch of paranoia to you. And if he consumed a whole bunch of that at once, to avoid getting the drug dealing charge, he could have been flipping out big time. The same thing with that guy in Kenosha. If he had fentanyl or some other kind of opioids, or even just, cocaine or meth or something in his system. So that's the types of things cops have to deal with. And you wonder, why is it taking, why they, got to have this many cops and put them down and hold them that way or put them in chokeholds. Because if somebody is jacked on something, and they're not feeling any pain, it puts you at a great disadvantage if you're a police officer. So like I said before in my other videos, the systemic problem in this country isn't racism, it isn't police brutality, it's drugs and the criminal mindset, the drug culture, people's perceptions of society in general, and that they have a right to just do whatever they want to do. They don't have to answer to anybody because real or imagined grievances against society or history. And you throw the drug use and everything else in there with it, and the guns, and you have the gangs who don't want, or who are anti-societal anyway. These are the problems we have to address. You can't call every time a police officer has to use deadly force racism. If I went to Africa, if I went to China, if I went to anywhere where it wasn't a white culture and the police had to deal with me and I resisted arrest and got either hurt or shot and killed, whose fault is it? Whose fault would it be? Would it be racism on their part? No, it wouldn't. So I want to put that out there. We need more information. We need the truth. And I also want to put out there, speaking of racism and in that type of fashion there, you often hear a lot coming from the African American community and also some of the Latino community now about the founding fathers and that how this country was founded by white men, for white men, etc., 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 and all this and everything. Let me ask you something. Those countries in Africa, who were they founded for? Who were they founded by and for? The countries in Asia, the Asians. Who was China founded for, by, and for? Who was Japan founded by and for? Who was England founded by and for? Who was Egypt founded by and for? Who was Kenya founded by and for? Now, our founding fathers were revolutionaries, visionaries even, because the way they wrote the Constitution and the Declaration, and seeing a nation that wasn't divided by race and religion and everything, because they looked at Europe and they looked at all the wars in the world. They were very educated men. They were classically educated men. They looked at all that stuff and said, hey, how can we make a more perfect union? They knew they had to deal with issues of slavery. And, well, George Washington was a slave owner. So were a lot of the people in Africa, the kings and stuff, that you look up to and you try and tell white people, oh, you don't know about this guy. He was this or that over there. And they all owned slaves too. You understand? No matter what culture you go to, there was some type of bondage, indentured bondage, slavery, at some time in their history going on. You look at Native Americans when they captured other tribes and stuff, and they took prisoners, they were slaves. They didn't take babies, and they killed babies and stuff. A lot of the tribes were quite savage here. They didn't take any of the youth or the children because there were more mouths to feed and more to take care of. They didn't take the men unless they used them as some type of slave. Usually everybody was killed except for the women. And they would take the women and do with them as they pleased. So let's stop all this, let's just demonize white people and white societies and white civilizations. Whenever you go to Africa, who founded the countries in Africa? And who'd they found them for? So you use the fact that white men founded this country and developed it as some kind of look that proves, you're racist, whatever. But a lot of you will point to like the Moors or other cultures who invaded Europe and stuff, and you look at it now, oh, look at that culture flourished under them and this and that and everything. But you look at us coming here and what happened to the Native Americans, which a lot of it shouldn't have, and you say, oh, look how bad we are in this and that. But if it hadn't happened, this country wouldn't have flourished and grown and all this and everything. But you're more than willing to pat yourselves on the backs when it's your people who invaded Europe or something or somewhere else, and the things they did, and so, oh, look, that was the golden years when our people were over there and we did this, and civilization there was much better because we went there and stuff. When you look at anything that white civilization has done, you demonize it. So I want to point that out too. You just start flapping your gums. All these people who write these books and all this stupid shit, got BAs and BS, and get on NPR and all these things. And this country was founded by white men for white people and blah 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 and all this. Well, now if you read the documents, yeah, in the time and the culture they lived in, they couldn't just come out, hey, we're doing this right now. They were visionaries. But they're also smart men and knew that things would take time, that you can't pull the rug out from under people's feet and this and that. And there was always a plan. And even though they took their time, there was still a civil war. And a lot of white people paid the price for your freedom. So just back off for a while with everything is racism, because it isn't. All right, wish you all the best out there. Guess I'll go see what this load is and get moving. Y'all take care. We'll see you on the next one. God bless. Adios.